Recapping St. Louis City's 3-1 win. We're live. We're morning after knee-jerk reactions. I'm excited to get into this just like you are.
I am too. 3-1 win. If we think we go back a year ago, it was a 1-0 loss at Chicago. So now 3-1 win, and this is starting to get the ingredients to become a rivalry with St. Louis winning one of the fixtures.
Heck yeah. You ready to go live for the pod recording?
Let's do it.
All right. I think I heard your phone buzzing just a little bit there.
Oh, sorry. Let me move it here.
No, you're good. That. All right. Jam-packed episode coming up. I'm interested to see how many people join us for the live stream because it's so dang early. But apologies if you love joining us on the live stream. And this one's my call. This was my fault. Mother's Day. You know, I am usually not in charge on things. I'm on borrowed time on most things in my life. This one especially true. There was no way around this. So let's do it.
Look who's here. Billy.
Aha. Oh, the infamous / famous Billy.
Yeah.
My goodness. Billy, whose every tweet now gets at least 5 digits worth of views, millions of views, double-digit millions. Good Lord. Good morning, Billy. I hope you brought your new Iraqi friends because let's extend City that way. Anyway, I'm getting way ahead of myself here since we're on borrowed time. Ready, Santi?
Yeah.
All right. Welcome everyone to Flyover Footy. My name is Matt Baker, joined as always by my friend in soccer, Santiago Beltran, for another Flyover Fallout. Here, there's nothing but happiness as we review St. Louis City's 3-1 win over the Chicago Fire. You can now officially call it a rivalry, right, Santi?
Yeah. A year ago, Chicago took the first MLS game in Chicago, and then this year, St. Louis returns the favor at City Park. So yeah, starting to build something. Obviously, only a couple MLS games and a U.S. Open Cup game, but yeah, now St. Louis gets his first win against Chicago and start to build some history there.
You know, the next key might be who can get the first away win, because that
Yeah.
seems to be the next step, and the next opportunity is going to be likely next year. It seems like these teams are playing each other every year, home and away, once a year. So the ball's in our court. We can take control of this rivalry as much as MLS is allowing us to.
Right. Yeah, it's too bad that it's only once a year, so it's gonna take some time. But yeah, hopefully, if they keep the rotation next year, it will be at Chicago, and
And
City will have a chance to take the win.
And this seemed like it was appropriately chippy, especially in the second half. And I think that's the hallmark of a good St. Louis-Chicago rivalry, is that chippiness, that grittiness that you get into, and it permeates in every sport. And I'm excited to see it now appearing for soccer. But let's start off like we usually do with our starting 11. And we were proven wrong. We thought Carnell would not only take that 0-0 draw against Houston and say, all right, we need to change something in our attack, whether it's leveraging the second half that AZ showed and building on that, but also managing minutes a little more and adding some different players in. Maybe Joachim Nilsson would see a start in anticipation of this 3 games in 8 days that we have ahead of us with LAFC midweek and FC Cincinnati next weekend. But he threw us a curveball. I know some other guys got it right, because that, you roll with what works, and offensively we were creating the chances. This lineup really proved to me that Carnell sticks to his guns when he says things like, we're happy with chances created. We know it's just a matter of time until things fall. And he trusts in his players. There's a lot to read into this lineup and what it means for not just Carnell's philosophy, but the individual players and their roles and importance with St. Louis City. It was, again, for the 4th straight time, Roman Berkey, Anthony Marcanic, Kyle Hebert, Tim Parker, Thomas Totland, Chris Durkin, Tomas Ostrak, Celio Pompeu, Indiana Vasilev, Rasmus Alm, and Klaus up top. Initial thoughts, Santi?
Well, I was surprised, but I wasn't. Like when we were talking about the starting lineup and trying to come up with our consensus lineup, it made sense to maybe have a change or two just after a scoreless draw, and also thinking about Joachim Nilsson getting more minutes. But at the same time, I was thinking, well, this has worked, and yeah, it's coming from a scoreless draw, but it's a lineup that has been working. To me, at least the last few games, this is the best 11, and
Mhm.
you put the best 11 on the field again, and give the guys some confidence, some trust, as you mentioned. Yeah, they couldn't score last game, but just give them another chance and see how they do, and it went well.
Yeah, and looking at this 11, you could say that it's the best 11. You could say it's the best 11 minus Leuven or Nielsen, who haven't broken free into that lineup yet. But either way, when you're having clean sheet after clean sheet, and then you're only allowing a goal and you're able to score some now, you run with this lineup. Kyle Hebert, more than a serviceable backline member, and his ability to be flexible going to that left side later in the second half was key in getting a guy like Joachim Nielsen minutes. Carnell attributed that to him. I like Carnell's quote post game on the lineup and formation, saying, if we had 3 hours, we would explain so many different formational changes throughout the game. Up high, it's a 4-2-3-1. When we're defending, it's a 4-2-2-2. We like to call it when we're attacking, it's a 4-3-2-1. I promise you, we can go on for days. When you see and what you read is not always what we put out as coaches. So, and then this is what we've talked about. We talk about sometimes it looks different than what the formation will be when he puts it out at the beginning of the game, and especially those differences offensively and defensively. I was excited to hear him say this because we've called it multiple times that defending they look different than they do attacking, and I think that is the perfect analogy for that is just looking at what Salio and Alm can do on those left and right sides. Because when Carnell references 4-2-2-2 in defense, it's using the press in wherever they're moving. So instead of shifting the field more asymmetrically in the attack, like we've seen when a fullback presses high. Think of it like if you press on the left side, you're having Salio move high and engage on the left, and it pivots Indy and Alm into more of the midfield, and it more looks like their vertical 4-2-2-2 in how they're approaching it when they're blocking different players and where they initiate the press. So those are exciting things to see, and I think it was really on display throughout because as we're going to get into later on, the lines of engagement, the way St. Louis's press was working was really efficient and very effective.
Yeah, yeah, this lineup did a great job, and when you put the same lineup so many games in a row, you start like to build that chemistry within the lineup,
Mm-hmm.
and that's also good. Like yeah, I know Bradley Carnell likes internal competition, but sometimes putting the same guys can also be helpful. So this lineup did a great job, and obviously with two more games coming up within this period of 8 days, we're probably gonna see some changes and some rotation. But yeah, I think it was a great call, even though we were wrong with our lineup.
And this is probably the last time we're going to see this lineup. I think that's fairly safe to say, as much as we can and as much as we speculate on if he's going to keep a consistent lineup midweek. And we'll talk about Edu Leuven and what his role might be later on. But I think this is the last time we're going to see this 11 together until the other side of this, maybe as far as a week from Cincinnati. But I think the Seattle Sounders is that game. But
Yeah.
we'll see what that looks like. For now, we've got goals to get into. For the first time in a couple weeks, we have goals to get into, and man, did it start early, Santi. This was incredibly exciting. Just the picture perfect start to the game, not just in how the goal occurred and timing wise, but how it occurred in the field. This got City Park amped up. And if you're looking for a shot in the arm, this city, this team, this stadium was ready to explode from this goal. You could tell just 2 minutes in after Brian Gutierrez had a shot on their end. Roman Berkey saved it easily. The shot was outside the box. Roman Berkey sent it long. Chicago could not clear it. They had a header attempt. They tried a short pass. And when they couldn't clear it, who was there to scoop it up? Rasmus Alm. Rasmus Alm picked the ball up. He dribbled about twice, caught Chris Brady off his line. And you can never call this a chip, even though it went over Brady, who was
Hmm.
coming off his line, because this was a worldie of a shot, top center of the goal. And Rasmus Alm put City up 1-0 just 2 minutes in. I like Alm's post-game comments where he just continuously talked about the game plan worked. He said, we talked about it, this shot from distance before the game, and it worked out. He tried it again later on, and it didn't work out. He was almost seeming like it's no big deal. We knew we were going to try it. We hoped it would work, and it did work.
Yeah, that was a great goal. Rasmus Sound getting his first goal of the year, and it was a great start for the team. It had been like last year. There were a few games where the team scored early in the game within the first 5 minutes, but
Hmm.
we had not seen that at City Park. We saw it against Real Salt Lake City at an away game
Yep.
with that Indiana Basilev goal, but at City Park it had not happened in a while. So yeah, it was a great start in a game like this where the team needed 3 points, and it's also great to see Rasmus Alm scoring. He works so hard, and it had been a while since he had scored last.
And this was the fastest goal scored in St. Louis City SC history, coming just 1 minute and 24 seconds into the match. So it marks the second time, like you said, the city has scored in the first 2 minutes, the first being Indiana Vasilevs against RSL. So this is a team that knows how to get off on the right foot, and they're not afraid to take some of those chances because Indy's shot was not nearly as, I would say, speculative as Rasmus Alm's. But like we've talked about, these speculative shots have roles and they do well to draw out defenses. And so whether it goes in or not, it still benefits you in how you're forcing the opposition to respect you in your build of play. But the fact that it went in, fantastic. And we were off and running essentially at that point because this changed the game, I feel, and how Chicago was playing in this first half. One stat, Santi, that I've brought into this show, and I think we're going to start using going forward, is XGOT, expected goals on target. I think this stat speaks to more than just XG. And it speaks to the fact that we've been concerned with St. Louis's ability to finish as opposed to just create chances. Their chance
Hmm.
creation has been absurdly good over an extended period of time now, but their finishing has been very, it has its ebbs and flows. It's been great some games like LA Galaxy, DC, Sporting, and now Chicago, but it's been pretty abysmal at certain times like Austin overall, FC Dallas, Houston. And so looking at XGOT, it's a measure of a combination, really, but it measures the likelihood of an on target shot resulting in a goal. So it looks at the underlying chance quality, the XG, plus the end location of the shot within the area of the goal. And so you're looking at, for instance, if you have a shot that goes right in the middle, right where the goalkeeper would be standing in a PK scenario, for instance, but in the run of play, right in the middle, that's going to have a low XGOT. The percentage chance that that goes in because the keeper is right there on target is not as high as, say, if you put the ball in the corner or a top or bottom shelf, corner. So that adds to the XG. So all these measures, Rasmus Alms, for instance, Klaus has a better example we'll get to, but Rasmus Alm's XG on that shot was 0.4 or zero point 0.04. His X got was 0.07. So just a little bit better because the ball was still in the middle of the goal when it went in. It was just at the top. So you figure the odds of it being saved are pretty high compared
Hmm.
to if it were in the corner. So that's something X got that we're going to be looking at here on these next few goals. But in this first half, what were your overall thoughts of just how the game flowed? Because the last shot that Chicago had was at the 24-minute mark. They only had 5 shots in the first half. The last one came at 24 minutes. They only had 2 shots on target, and both of those shots on target came at 2 minutes from Brian Gutierrez and 10 minutes from Kellen Acosta, both outside the box. This seemed like a St. Louis team that really prevented Chicago from doing anything in the first half.
Yeah, it was a great first half, but you mentioned that shot on the 24 minute that could have been the equalizer for Chicago Fire.
Mm-hmm.
Just Brian Gutierrez just couldn't score, and I don't have it in front of me, but I think that was a very high xG shot, and he just missed it. But
Yep.
great first half by City. The only thing missing, at least for me, was that second goal, because the team was dominating, creating so many chances, but just couldn't score that second goal. And I was thinking this could be dangerous, like you are dominating, creating so much,
Mm-hmm.
but then Chicago Fire, um, they can just score the equalizer anytime if you don't score your second one. And that shot from Gutierrez on the 24 minute was an example. Like City was dominating, created at least 2 3 more chances before that shot, and Chicago on a quick play caught City in a bad position, and they switched the ball, long balls, which is something I saw too. City was like attacking so high, so many men on Chicago's half, and Chicago, I think they identified that and used the long ball to create that chance. But great first half overall. Just that second goal was missing, at least to me.
You could make some eerie parallels to that RSL game where Indy scored early and then it went period of time without goals, and then the second half just the onslaught occurred, and it was because City was seen as squandering some of these opportunities because it did come in buckets. You had these moments where teams kind of had a difficulty in progressing the ball, but when they did, they ended up having multiple shots in a single sequence. So looking at that, after Kellenicosta's 10 minutes, you had an Indiana Vasilev speculative shot. You had that Kellen Acosta, Andrew Gutman 13-minute mark where they both had shots. And then St. Louis had a few at 17-18 with Klaus, Totland, and Parker all having shots from various angles. And then after the 24-minute mark, you did have a bunch of good shots. St. Louis, in fact, had 8 shots after Chicago's last attempt at 24. And so if you have 8 shots and Chicago's not being allowed to have any, you definitely see it as, all right, when is this next goal going to come? If it's going to come. St. Louis, in fact, had 17 shots, 9 in the box, 4 on target, and 3 shots with greater than 0.1 XG, 2 shots with greater than 0.3 XGOT. Marcanic at 23 and Indy at 40. So we had the opportunities that we were taking, and we had the shot positioning on where the ball was landing near goal. Things were trending up, but we just couldn't find that second goal to really put some distance between St. Louis and Chicago. And then you get into halftime, and Chicago makes the second half sub. They make some tactical changes. And I don't know if you could really credit a tactical change to this, but Chicago definitely felt more comfortable coming out of halftime. I mean, like the play coming out of half compared to what they were doing in the first half, which I felt in the first half, it was a lazy press. It was, they weren't on the front foot. They were they were trying to be in the St. Louis defensive zone, but they weren't really, there wasn't much bite to their press. And St. Louis was able to maneuver the ball around fairly well. In the second half, as soon as Chicago obtained the ball and possession, they did what you were describing St. Louis was doing. They were trying to work the ball around multiple angles there on that first possession. And what ended up happening was working the ball around, getting a quick build to the right side after changing directions. And then it was Chris Muller who took it to the byline, sent a cross in. The defense was spread out, and I struggled with this because this was a quintessential St. Louis goal allowed to me. It was in transition. The back line was pulled really tight, really far across to the point where Thomas Totland was in the middle of the box right in front of Roman Berkey when this cross came over from Muller over to Andrew Gutman, who headed it into the box for Hugo Kuipers to eventually score when he found some space after Tim Parker leveled Brian
Oh,
Gutierrez.
yeah.
But this pulling of St. Louis in, it's working their fullbacks into the box. It seems like the recipe for success that teams tend to have in transition, and Chicago just seemed to take advantage of it in this scenario.
Yeah, yeah, and it was like the first play of the second half.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's kind of the continuation of what I was saying for the first half. That second goal never came, and then Chicago took advantage of that quick transition, and yeah, some things to correct. I'm sure the team will look at that, especially getting giving up a goal the first minute of the second half is something that we have seen in previous games, the last few games that had not happened, but earlier in the year, like quick scores after City scored a goal or after a
Mm-hmm.
restart, and this was similar to that. It was the beginning of the second half, and at that point, as you mentioned, Chicago looked more comfortable. Like after that goal, like the next 5 minutes, they looked like they had settled on the field, and City didn't create much for those next half minutes. But then I'm glad that that second goal came still early on that second half, and City was able to open up the game.
Yeah, the second half started dangerous, and that was one of those. That's one of the 3 moments in a game that can really change the entire narrative and pace of a game. It's at the very beginning of the game, which St. Louis took advantage of, sets the tone for everything. Right before halftime, which players have to take that into the locker room, so they have to sit around with whatever happens at the end of the first half. And then coming out strong in the second half does the same thing as the beginning, sets the tone for the rest of the game. And so you worry if Chicago scores so quickly, is St. Louis going to get outside of themselves, try to do too many different things, seeing this fire that Chicago is able to bring to the second half. And thankfully, that wasn't the case. You had a pretty consistent response from St. Louis there at the early to mid parts of the second half. And it starts with Joao Klaus. Well, technically, it starts with Celio Pompeu. I think you have to really credit him, as Klaus did, for what happened at the 56th minute mark, which, as Klaus said right after, it was purely made by Celio. His celebration was just nonstop,
Uh-huh.
pointing at Celio for what he was able to do. And look at the replay on this one. The highlight for Celio in this moment. This is Celio Pompeu to a T. This is why Celio Pompeu is probably as indispensable to the St. Louis City lineup in your best 11 without any other considerations as anybody else in this lineup. What he's able to do 1v1, taking the ball into dangerous areas and not just getting a shot off on his own like Sam is really adept at, but creating for others and doing multiple different things. Celio did have multiple shots in which he created for himself and he saw an opening and he took. But in this case, he had that 1v1 ability. He took Alan Aragoni over to the byline. He won the ball, pulled it back, and sent it into Klaus, who found just enough space, had just enough touch on it to put it in the perfect spot, bottom corner. And then he gave that Nico nod right after the goal. I mean, the celebration of crediting Celio, of nodding to Nico, and Klaus finally getting that goal in the run of play again. He just seemed so happy. It was a great build, and it was just so fun to see in response to that Chicago early goal in the second half.
Yeah, yeah, it's good the team score 10 minutes later, because then the game could have been getting a little complicated. But yeah, Celio, that play, and he was almost like I was when I was watching it live. I even called it during the broadcast that he was he was pulling the Chicago defender was pulling his shirt like 2 or 3 times, and other player will try to get the foul, but and we have seen this a few times this year. Celio just prefers to continue the play and try to find the opportunity. And he found the opportunity. He was able to find Klaus in the middle of the box, and Klaus did enough to score. And at that point, to me, it was a relief, just because Chicago scored the equalizer so early. And as I mentioned, they look more comfortable on the field, but that changed the game again.
That XGOT stat that I had earlier, Klaus's XG on this first goal, was 0.4, which is a high XG. His XGOT was a 0.91, which takes
Oh,
into
wow.
consideration the location, like I said. So you have the expected goals plus the location on goal in the overall likelihood that it'll end up scoring. So of the on-target shots, 0.91, incredible. Hugo Kuipers to begin the second half was 0.99. That ball, based on his XG plus where he put the ball, was a no-brainer. But Klaus was 0.91, and his next goal at 67 was just about the same. This goal, after consistent pressure in the attacking third, I loved this so much because it really played to one of the keys of the games that we had before, which is St. Louis needed to not just progress the ball quickly into the attacking third, but there was an opportunity based on the Chicago defense to possess in the attacking third and really make them uncomfortable in that possession-based defending. And this is what St. Louis did very well. Rasmus Alm had a shot, but he recovered his shot afterwards. And when he recovered his shot, this was the opportunity for that possession. They were very intentional, very methodical, and they took their time to take what was available to them. Alm gave it off to Totland. Totland passed it back to Ostrak, all on the right-hand side, and Ostrak found a cutting Durkin high to the right wing. When Durkin went out to the right wing, defenders started to be drawn more towards that right side, and they folded in. Durkin sent it to Klaus. Klaus did what my wife did, was asking for so many times, which was back post offense. So when players send the crosses in, they want to, like, we seem to have been missing a spot on the back post so many times. Klaus covered that perfectly. Faded in the exact right area. He read the direction of the ball on that cross so well. He leaped into the air, and the rest was history. He put that away for the third goal, and he finally had his brace, his next brace for St. Louis City. This was, and Chris Durkin had an interesting quote after this game where he really talked about his ability to play high and get higher up on the field. He said this was definitely more of an active game for him. He was tonight was a little bit more offensive for him. He had the coaches always trying to reel him in a little bit because he knows his role as the sixth, the
Hmm.
holding midfielder. He said just to get the assist today with Klaus. Yeah, I love being all over the field. That's part of my DNA is just working hard and being everywhere I can. So I love the role on this team, and probably I should have reeled it in a little bit towards the end of the game, but that's just kind of who I am. And if Chris Durkin is going to have this as a takeaway lesson learned, I'll say learn all the lessons you want, because with his switching on and off with Tomas Ostrak playing a little deeper if Durkin moves higher, hell of a partnership. This is the kind of thing that you want from your midfield, that adaptability, that flexibility, where, yeah, 95% of the time, maybe you want Durkin to stay back because that's his role, and the defense can get hurt if he's not helping out with the back line. But if he sees an opportunity like he did to take space and give service into the box for Klaus, I am such a fan of him taking that. And this play overall was just so beautifully developed.
Yeah, and he did it a few times. I The first couple of times I was like, what is he doing up there? But it was great to see, and that he has. We had not seen that part of his game, that he's able to go on attacking mode and support the build up, and in this case, he was able to get that cross. So that's one more thing the team can do, and Ostrak is staying back, and Dorkin going on the attack and showing that he can also, besides defending and being all over the field, he can also contribute on offense. So it's good to see that you have that versatility from your defensive midfielders.
After that moment where Klaus put City up by 2 goals, we saw some subs. And I think this was both tactical as well as saving legs and minutes for this coming
Yeah.
week, where you have 3 matches in 8 days. You had Sam and Deneran enter the match for Rasmus Alm at 73. You had AZ Jackson, Nukvi Thorson, and Joachim Nilsson come in all at the same time for Klaus, Salio, and Marcanic. And this is where Hebert's flexibility allowed him to move to the left side, where otherwise it was fairly straightforward. When Sam entered the game, Klaus dropped into the 10 role that we were used to seeing this season when Sam and Klaus are both in the game. When AZ, Nukvi, and Nilsson entered the game, you saw Nukvi take his spot on the left, AZ in the center, and Indy on the right with Sam up top. And then when Nilsson came in, it moved Hebert over to the left. Jose Kojima subbing in at 88 minutes for Tomas Ostrak was the final sub for St. Louis, utilizing all 5 of their substitutes. And I have to spotlight Jose Kojima on this one. I
Mhm.
tweeted it out during the game, but he was just so impressive in playing the ball on both sides. He had a good defensive awareness. He knew where to position himself, not just on the ball, but where to position himself off the ball in some of the buildups. And it seems obvious why he's taken this role, as Leuven is out now, so I wonder what his role is going to be when he comes back. But this week offers a perfect opportunity. I hope we can see a Kojima start in this week, but I think this is an opportunity Kojima has taken by the horns to run with it, and I'm excited to see what the future holds for him. I just think he's developing so incredibly well, and he's definitely moved himself up into the depth chart. I think so. This conversation of it's Leuven, it's Durkin, Blom, Ostrak, and Kojima, and not necessarily in that order all the time, but this is an incredible amount of midfield depth, especially compared to what we had last year.
Yeah, yeah, he has taken advantage of coming at the end of of a few games, and to me, he looks like a veteran. Like he has been around for more than just this season, and I know he's a student of the game, so I'm sure he has been trying to absorb as much information as he can during training, and that shows. That shows, and he's taking advantage of those minutes, and maybe this week with the midweek game, we he may see more minutes here on Wednesday or on Saturday.
That's the hope. Santi, let's get into the passing networks, some of the expected threats, the height of the defensive actions that we looked at, that we talked about earlier. I see our passing network in this one, and it's balanced. That's the first thing that pops out to me. we have seen in the past few games that St. Louis has a tendency this year to build on their left side a little bit more, using either Ostrak or Durkin to work between the left center back and the left back as Anthony Markanek has moved higher up on the field. And so that's where a lot of our volume-based possession comes from. It's our midfield, Ostrak and Durkin, and our left side. Our right side tends to have a little more running action. That's where, and Chicago's first goal, or Chicago's goal, was the mirror image of this, where Thomas Totland moves so high up on the field and he's been playing so well with Rasmus Alm, but our passing network reflects this, the fact that Thomas Totland's average position was almost in line with that of Rasmus Alm, Indiana
Hmm.
Vassilev, Klaus, and Salio. That's how high up the field he was progressing. And so that puts pressure on a guy like Chris Durkin to cover that area of the field. I think defensively, for the most part, the goal notwithstanding that was allowed, Thomas Totland did a fantastic job in being able to track back as much as he needed to. But I think that just plays into the fact that that's what you're doing on the right side. You're creating these runs. And when you have Thomas Totland, who's not trying to possess the ball higher up on the field necessarily like Anthony Markanek has been doing and working the ball intentionally, he can track back defensively. And then when he's done with his role, he sprints high. And his fitness and his form is allowing him to do this and do this well. And that's allowing him to spread the field on that right wing and play a two-way ball that he needs to. I love the fact that we had such a consistent high line. That's so the left side, the runs by Totland on the right, and then the high line that we kept between Salio, Klaus, and Indy. I don't think we've seen anything like this so far this season, where they've all been as high up on the field consistently. The other stat we're going to get into in a minute, the average height of defensive actions, will play directly into this, because St. Louis spent a lot of time in the attacking third and especially the attacking half of Chicago. And the thing that I'd look at and is most noticeable when I see St. Louis's average positioning versus Chicago is St. Louis, by average position, had 8 of their players in the attacking half of Chicago for the first 70 plus minutes of the game until their subs came in. That's absurd. You're just looking at Berkey and your 2 center backs as average positioning being in your defensive half. Chicago, by comparison, had 10 players in their defensive half, just 1 averaged in their offensive half of the field. That seems like a wild juxtaposition.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So a couple of things from the passing network. One thing that caught my attention was Chris Dorking a little bit higher than
Mm-hmm.
Thomas Ostrak, and
Yeah.
we talked about it. Him taking more of an offensive role at times, and the other one is the average positioning you mentioned. Like, sometimes it's great to see what you see during the game, to see it on these charts and
Right.
stats. Like the team was, I was at at points of the game, I was like, wow, everybody is on Chicago's half, or mostly everybody, and then that confirms it. So yeah, it's a new way, like a different way of attacking for City, doing things. But I like that the team was so aggressive on a game that it needed to win, as last night's game.
This is the evolution of Bradley Carnell's St. Louis City that we continue to talk about, and we're seeing the fruits of the labor pay off. And I love too when you look at stats that back up what the eye test gives you. I thought that we played a complete game. I thought that I saw St. Louis in the attacking half an overwhelming amount compared to Chicago. And you see that in what these stats are backing up. And the momentum of the entire game. Chicago had, like we talked about, their shots at 13 minutes or so. They had momentum in that area. They had momentum at the end of the game around 88 to 90 with a few shots. They had Tom Barlow, credit to him for kicking that off there around 88 minutes, St. Louis native. And then you
Right.
had the beginning of the second half. But otherwise, it was St. Louis, and it was consistent spurts. So when they had the ball and they had opportunities, we're talking multiple shots over a span of 1 or 2 minutes, and they're retaining possession. They're using those second chances off of missed shots, whether they're blocks or creating corner kicks, to consistently add pressure over a period of a minute or two. And that puts a lot of stress on Chicago's back line and their defense, which furthered the fact that they just couldn't do anything to their press, and they were stuck in their own defensive half for significant portions, which was what the game plan needed from St. Louis. And then you look at just the overall amount of where do the touches come from for St. Louis. And it was still consistent. The passing network that made it look like it was holistically using all of our players. The number of touches for St. Louis City: Kyle Hebert had 55, Thomas Totland 54, Tim Parker 51, Tomas Ostrak 50, Anthony Markanic 47. Every single member of our back line had within 10 touches of each other. And then Indiana Vassilev and Chris Durkin extending to the midfield and then up through the central attacking midfield, 43 and 42. So these players are touching the ball pretty even amount of times, which has not been a hallmark of St. Louis in pressing and pushing towards a specific side of the field or sending the ball long and having your attackers be some of your leading touchers. Klaus only had, I think, like 32 touches. He wasn't asked to come back and be the holding for the other attacking midfielders. He wasn't asked to play make as much as in previous games. That's a takeaway too, is what his role overall in this game was. But while St. Louis was progressing intentionally through the left side and having the runs on the right, I think in general, it was just the amount of touches consistently through the back line that was so impressive. And maybe that took Chicago off guard a little bit.
Yeah, and just Kyle Hibbert with 55 of leading with 55
Yeah,
touches. Yeah, that shows what you mentioned, City progressing the ball to the left side, and even after the substitutions, when he moved to left back, he continued doing what Marcani was doing, and he was also so high and
yeah,
created I was looking at one of these charts and. The XT from passes, and Heber was four
right?
on there, and a lot of that was probably in the last 10 minutes when he switched to left back.
Yeah, he was he had himself a good game on the ball. I was impressed with his ability to control the ball, which he seemed like in the past. He's getting a lot better in having the ball at his feet, but that definitely seemed like something with City 2 and his first few months with City, he just wasn't comfortable with. It was holding the ball and progressing it and passing it in dangerous areas. He definitely seems like he's getting a little bit more comfortable and he's adding that dimension continuously in pressing higher and not just being a holding center back. So it's fun to see the evolution of a guy like Kyle Hibbert, who you've seen since the very beginning, just like Celio Pompeu. These couple of players that you're able to see for years now over time and watch them grow is incredibly exciting. The average height of defensive actions that Kyle Hibbert helped with this, by the way. Kyle Hibbert, Tim Parker, and Roman Berkey being the only three whose average position was in the defensive half. It was because this line of engagement for St. Louis was near midfield on average. So that first move that St. Louis made on the ball defensively was happening like right at midfield, like almost 57 meters down the field, where Chicago's average height of defensive action was 31 meters. It was almost near their penalty box. And when you're looking at the differences between players being in the attacking end versus players being in the defensive end for the most of the game, this is why St. Louis's press was so effective at disrupting the ball higher up on the field than Chicago was. And we know Chicago is a pressing team. They led the league in number of high turnovers. And so they were coming into this one of the top teams in pressing and being effective at generating chances in their attacking third. But this game, St. Louis had the answer, and it was to possess the ball a little bit more and be more
Hmm.
intentional. How many times did you see St. Louis move the ball to a fullback, see nothing, and they sent it back to Roman Berkey to restart the play?
Yeah, I was surprised by that because when I was listening to you and Phil on the preview of the game, you guys talk a lot about Chicago's press, and at times I was like, okay, we are trying to progress the ball and goes back to Roman Berkey, but nobody is pressing. I even
Mm-mm.
I, I even recall at least 3 or 4 times where Tim Parker, like he just progressed the ball all the way through midfield, and there was no
Yeah.
press at all from Chicago.
It was a lazy press. I said it in the first half, and I think that presented itself. I don't know how any other way to describe it really, because they were putting 1v1 pressure in the defensive end, but it wasn't like St. Louis. Like it
Hmm.
they might have the numbers to back up the high turnovers or previous games, the average height of their defensive actions, but in this game it just seemed lazy. They weren't trying to swarm. I mean, maybe that's what I'm used to from St. Louis is multiple
Hmm.
players converging on one, but especially in those instances where Roman Berkey had the ball passed to him and they were kind of resetting their offensive flow, nobody put really pressure on Roman Berkey. I think there might have been one or two times where their forward had put pressure, whether it was Kuipers or whoever, put pressure on Roman Berkey. St. Louis had a lot of free roaming in their defensive end the few times that they did have the ball there, and that helped them to be very intentional with where and when they're progressing it up. And I think that helps set the tone for everything. All of these stats really reflect a well-played game by St. Louis. The 47% possession, that's St. Louis's sweet spot. The
Hmm.
XG on this one, 2.32 for St. Louis. That was almost, if not the highest they've had all season long. The expected goals on target for St. Louis was right at that 3 mark. It was 2.95. That's another reason I really like this stat and what it allows us to see for this particular St. Louis team that creates chances but has had an issue here and there with finishing. They haven't been consistent in that. And so the expected goals on target allows us to go deeper into those shots that are on target to see what the likelihood of them scoring is. Expected goals on target is something that we're going to continue to look at. St. Louis had 3 players with zero point 0.3 or higher expected goals on target, one of them being Klaus, like we said, with 2.01, very reflective of his 2 goals. And then Anthony Markanek and Indiana Vassilev had a couple other really good quality shots on goal in the first half. Klaus was unquestionably, to me, the man of the match. I could make other arguments of what Salio did, and everybody should make the arguments of, Billy said it in the chat earlier, Salio low-key player of the match for his creation and vision. It was absolutely insane, but when you have a player who scores a brace and needed this confidence coming in, is there any doubt that with his 2-goal performance, 6 shots, 3 on target, that Klaus was the man of the match?
No, not at all. And yeah, like a special mention to Celio because he did so much and
Mm-hmm.
he created the chance for Klaus to score the first goal. But yeah, when your number 9 scores 2 goals and gets his confidence back, you have to go with him for the man of the match. So it's great to see Klaus scoring another brace, and now he has 5 goals this year in 11 games, which is similar, although he was injured. So last year
Mm-hmm.
he got injured on game number 9 against Colorado.
Colorado.
Then when he came back, the first 3 games he came off the bench. He didn't score. So
Mm-hmm.
just drawing comparisons to last year, five goals in 11 games this year. Last year through 12 games, even though the last 3 games he didn't play a lot of minutes, he scored also 5 goals.
And St. Louis has played 11 games. Klaus's 5 goals have come all in the last 7 matches. So that we're seeing that trend now in the right direction. He's tallied 8 goals in his last 18 regular season matches, and this is his 3rd brace in a City jersey. When it rains, it pours for Klaus, and that's exciting to see. But other players, like we said, Celio Pompeu, who along with Chris Durkin and Tomas Ostrak notched its 2nd assists of the year. Celio now has 3 goals and 2 assists on the year. Rasmus Alm obviously had himself a hell of a game, scored his first goal of the year, and that being the fastest goal that St. Louis has scored. And then the stat that we love to bring up, and the team has adopted, and I'm so happy they have. City is 15, 7, and 8 all time in regular season matches when Alm either starts or enters the match. We started tracking this mid-season last year when Alm was very much hit or miss in being a part of the lineup because it was very noticeable. But now, as Rasmus Alm has cemented himself into a vital piece and a must start on that right side, and he's fully healthy, this is the kind of stat line that you could see really can make a difference if it's expanded out over a long period of time. Rasmus Alm, not the player of the game, but a key player of the game here and elsewhere in the season so far.
Yeah, he has been so important for the team, and the team going with the same lineup. Obviously, opportunity for him to continue getting minutes. He missed some time earlier in the year because of injury, but it looks like he's back. It's still just due to the way City plays. He hasn't played 90 minutes and he
Mm-hmm.
has been subbed out, but he's showing how important he is for the team, and the fact that he was rewarded with a goal last night was great too.
One of those benefits to having the depth of the attack that St. Louis has right now is you can save a guy like Rasmus Alm from needing to go because he runs faster than just about any City player. I think he's been clocked at 20 plus miles an hour at various points throughout the season. Chris Durkin might run more when his role, but Rasmus Alm runs faster. And so you're wanting to be able to utilize him as much as possible. And that ability to sub out is definitely good. Not unlike the conversation we had last week about Marco Royce in what his role might look like. I had to drop a Royce
There you
mention at
go.
least once in this episode, but that's all I'll talk about. some takeaways for City in as a whole. They've extended their unbeaten streak to 5 straight matches, 2 wins and 3 draws. They remain undefeated at City Park, 3-0-3 in MLS play, 4-0-3 at home across all comps, including Champions Cup. St. Louis is just one of 3 teams this season that has not lost a match at home, along with LAFC and the Red Bulls. Across the 14 all-time MLS wins at home, St. Louis has scored 3 or more goals in 10 of those. So this is a team that scores often when they win, usually at home. And after scoring 3 goals against Chicago, City recorded their 14th game with at least 3 goals since the start of last year, the most in MLS over that span. And MLS Communications tweeted this out. That's a fun stat about St. Louis and their ability to score multiple goals. A huge stat. This might be my takeaway from this game right now when you're looking at the big picture is the Columbus Crew lost the Hell is Real Derby this weekend to FC Cincinnati 2-1, which means St. Louis City SC is the only team in MLS with just 1 loss. You can say all you want about the draws, 7 draws over 11 matches, but this is a team that does not lose.
Yeah, it's a different way of doing things, and now I'm gonna bring my favorite stat. And I was thinking during the week, I was like, I hope it's not a draw or City has to win, so I
Yes.
can talk about this. So through 11 games, 16 points this year. Last year through 11 games, 19 points.
Mm-hmm.
So the team is very close to what it did last year. It's just that people remember that electric start from last year,
Yes.
5 wins in a row. But then after that, the team only won 1 game from the next 6. So you are kind of on par with last year. And yeah, a lot of draws. Yeah, that's fine. It's just a different way to get the points. And the fact that the team has only lost 1 game, and the game it lost was to Real Salt Lake, who is leading the conference. This team is very competitive. I was talking to Gen C's earlier
Mm-hmm.
this week, and we both agreed that even though in terms of points and wins is not better than what the team did last year, I think this team is playing better than last year's team.
I can't remember if I kept it in my notes, but I had a note this morning when I first started looking at the game again that said this team feels markedly better than last year's team. Whether it's consistency, the evolution and how they're progressing, generating shot chances, and now finishing multiple games with multiple goals. You just have a better feeling of how this team looks, and it feels like this team is built to last now, both in depth and what they're showing on the field in their drive to not lose. And that seems like something that's replicable over the course of the season and into the playoffs versus last year, where at this time we had that poor run of games against Minnesota, Seattle, and you were starting to see cracks in the armor and how teams can beat St. Louis. Based on how St. Louis is playing so far this year, one of my biggest takeaways is not just Klaus finding his form. It's not just Carnell finding his starting 11. It's not just the attack continuing to produce chance creation, but it's that I don't see any huge holes in this team. This team, they need to consistently do more to finish out games, but this team offensively and defensively seems like one of the most dangerous teams in the entire league, and I feel they're going to progressively get better as they play more together.
Absolutely, but now the team has a quick turnaround, a big test against LAFC this Wednesday.
They do. So, but as we finish off this episode, let's pivot a little bit into LAFC because we have a Wednesday midweek match. LAFC, we have a short preview here, but we're going to have a whole lot more coming on Tuesday. In my usual midweek pod, instead of looking at overall at MLS, we're going to dive into LAFC a little bit more, including hearing from Carnell and what the team has going into that match. We do know that there's going to be some kind of statement made by Edu Leuven. Bradley Carnell said Edu will probably make a statement next week. He wants to publicly come and address you guys, speaking to the media. And when he addresses you guys, that will be the time that he's available. It sounds, Santi, to me like this is before Edu Leuven makes his return to the field. He wants to clear the air on something going on. That's the glass half full approach. The glass half empty approach is by Carnell saying he's available. He'll be available to the media, and there's still not a timetable to his return. Do you get a sense for how this is going to go?
No, no, I don't.
Mm,
I'm not sure what he's going to say, but hopefully it's just part of him, like getting there, because we know like it's like a 2 point, like fitness wise, and
mhm.
then also mentally,
Yep.
but I hope whatever is going on, like, and Carnell has mentioned it before, like the person is first.
Yes.
So I hope he gets past what's going on, and mentally he's ready to play. But yeah, it's one more step in that process, but at the same time, like as you mentioned, like glass half full. Like, what is he gonna say? Is it gonna be something good? Is it gonna be something bad? But we're gonna have to wait until sometime next week, or whenever he's ready to address the media. But until then, I don't want to speculate.
Hopefully, we don't have to wait long because we will be hearing from Bradley Carnell and the team at the beginning of the week in anticipation of this match against fifth place LAFC, who now has a 5-4-3 record in the West. They have 18 points, which is two ahead of St. Louis City, 22 goals scored, 19 goals against, a +3 goal differential, but they have a 0-4-1 away record so far. Their form in their last 6 games has been pretty good. One loss in their last 6, so they've been able to at least take a point. Their last 3 were wins against the Portland Timbers at home 3-2, a loss against the San Jose Earthquakes away 3-1, and a win against Vancouver this weekend 3-0. They've scored a goal in their last 8 games after going goalless in 3 of their first 4. So this is a team that has started to round into form as they've gone on. They have 4 goal scorers with 4 or more goals, led by the one and only Denny Bowanga with 6 goals on the season, which is one more than Joao Klaus now has. And this weekend, like I said, they defeated the Vancouver Whitecaps 3-0. And it looks to me, Santi, like LAFC ran out as strong of a lineup as they probably could, mirroring what St. Louis did in their best 11. So do you feel like this is a case where both teams could be ripe for midweek subs, maybe leveling the playing field in that regard, with City possibly having the advantage because it's at home?
No, I actually want to see both teams with their best lineup,
Yeah.
and I think part of some of those substitutions City made yesterday was saving some of those legs for Wednesday. Like, you are going against one of the best teams in the conference in the
Mm-hmm.
last few years, and yeah, they didn't start the season great, but now they're starting to turn things around, and you want to play against these teams just to see how good you are. Like, see, we were talking about it, like different way of getting the points, but City has shown that it has evolved. It's a different team than last year, but what a better way to test that against one of the best teams in the conference, and a team that last year City couldn't get a win. It got a point at City Park, but it's only one of 3 teams in the Western Conference that City hasn't gotten a wins against yet, and hopefully that will come on Wednesday.
Something's got to give in this one. And LAFC has, like I said, rounded into better form. They had multiple goals scored by Christian Oliveira. They had Denny Bowanga having multiple assists. He had 3 assists this past weekend. Their offense comes from all over the field. Ilie Sanchez is a beast in the midfield and how he holds that area. This is a team that is strong front to back. And we saw what they had last year. And philosophy wise, it's the same LAFC. And so when you're looking at an LAFC team that this year in 2024 has not won away, versus a St. Louis City team that has not beaten LAFC in 2 matches, something has to give. And so you wonder how this is going to play out, who's able to dictate their style the best, and whether which team can carry the momentum. 3-1, 3-0. Both teams had stellar performances this weekend. So who can carry that momentum, and how is this play going to progress? I do hope we see the best lineups, and that would lead into a rotated lineup likely against FC Cincinnati. But I think what subs Bradley Carnell made, like you said, are going to be able to inform whether they're initially starting. So if Salio or Alm starts this match, or if they come in the second half, we're going to see consistent amount of time from those top 11 players, just like we did. If Leuven's able to come back, that's fantastic. If Nilsson's able to start, that's great. But I'm confident in this starting 11 going up against any team in MLS at this point in time, based on what they've been doing. Santi, any takeaways or final thoughts from you on this Mother's Day edition of Flyover Fallout?
No, just want to say to all the mothers out there, happy Mother's Day. Enjoy your Sunday, and what a better way to celebrate it than with a city win last night.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself. And so the takeaway for St. Louis right now is that we've moved to a 3-1-7 record with 16 points. They remain ninth in the West, but there's some separation now between the ninth and the 10th place team in the West. 5 points now separate St. Louis at 9 from 10th place Dallas, while only 2 points separate St. Louis from 4th place Vancouver, and 4 points separate them from 2nd place Minnesota. We are on the right half of this conference table right now. The quick turnaround against LAFC. We're going to have more on LAFC later this week. For Santiago Beltran, my name is Matt Baker. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. Have a safe and happy rest of the weekend, and we will talk to you later.
Vamos City.
All right.
All right, 2 minutes. 2 minutes to spare for you.
I didn't stop the stream yet. Yeah, no, I didn't stop the stream yet because Elliot Meyer asked, did you see Chris Gebhardt's post? Missed the beginning. What did Chris Gebhardt post? Because I definitely missed it.
But not on this chat.
I wonder if it's a tweet that he sent out.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna check out soccer news while we're still broadcasting this real quick.
Okay, let's see.
Oh no.
What?
Okay. He tweeted out, "Great win by City tonight, which was far more fun than the massive heart attack I had in Schlafly afterwards.
No.
Out of surgery, feeling okay and grateful for the staff there and friends who literally saved my life." This was at 3 a.m. He tweeted this out.
Wow.
Chris is one of the absolute best people I know. I haven't known him for very long, but the work that he does on STL Soccer News is unparalleled in coverage for City across the board. He's such a supporter of ours in what we do. We're a supporter of his. I'm happy to see he's doing okay. That's scary, scary, scary stuff. Chris, our thoughts and prayers are with you, man. We hope you bounce back and make a full recovery. We're thinking about you, buddy.
Yeah. I'm glad. As he mentioned, staff as Schlafly's and friends were able to save him, and hopefully we'll see him back around City Park or even joining us on this live stream soon. So best wishes to Chris, and we will pray for you, Chris.
Absolutely. Yeah. More to come. We'll give updates on him when we can, and he tweets it out. So at STL_soccer_news. If you haven't followed him, do. One of the best guys out there. So we're thinking about you, Chris. Feel better soon, buddy. And I hate to go out on that note, but that's how life works sometimes. Thanks for joining us here on the live stream for Flyover Footy. Santi, have a great Mother's Day, and we'll talk to everybody later.